Welcome back to This is VANCOLOUR. You may recall last month when protesters in St. Albert, Alberta held up racially motivated signs of protest, which got me thinking, if they weren't harassing anyone specifically, is what they did illegal? Is it a hate crime? Does it matter that they were in public? To provide us with her legal expertise is my counterpart on CBC Radio's Soapbox Social Panel, representing Acumen Law. She is Kyla Lee, and this is Kyla's Court. So, Kyla, what is a hate crime, and is it just a crime that I hate?
Well, it should be a crime that you hate, but
Okay.
A hate crime can be any crime as long as the offense is motivated by hate. So if you commit a crime and the reason you commit it is because you hate somebody or some group of people, then that is a hate crime.
Now, is a hate crime always attached to another crime, whether it's assault or vandalism or harassment, or can a hate crime just be its own standalone crime?
There's no standalone offense in the criminal code for a hate crime, so it always has to be attached to another crime. And it actually requires the consent of the Attorney General to classify something as a hate crime in a prosecution. But there are standalone offenses in the criminal code that deal with hatred, whether it's public incitement of hatred or advocating genocide or anti-Semitism, denying the Holocaust. There are specific provisions that deal with hateful actions.
Okay, so this is the area where I get kind of confused, because if you are someone and you're just standing there with an offensive sign that says, deport all immigrants, like we saw in the St. Albert protest, you know, we can call it deplorable, but is that a crime if you're not specifically harassing someone or chanting things at someone or bothering anyone?
It's probably not a crime to stand outside with a sign that suggests deporting all immigrants. There are a number of defenses to the advocating hatred or incentivizing hate crimes in the criminal code. They include things like you expressing a sort of a valid political stance on something that you believe to be true. And deporting all immigrants, that position doesn't advocate for other people to hate immigrants. It just advocates for Canada not to have immigrants anymore.
Is it kind of a gray area, though, in terms of what constitutes hate? Because obviously, if they have a sign that denies the Holocaust, that would be hate, wouldn't it?
That would absolutely be hate, and that would be a criminal offense.
Okay.
But there's no specific definition of hate, and it is often quite contextual, right? You might have somebody who's saying something that a person could feel is hateful, but isn't meant or said in a hateful manner, and that wouldn't rise to the level of a criminal offense.
Okay, so this is where it becomes confusing then. So in the case of the St. Albert protest, were those folks committing a hate crime? Because it obviously upset a lot of people. It obviously was racially motivated. It seemed to be hateful. Is that a crime or not in terms of what they did?
I mean, putting on my defense lawyer hat, because I don't agree with anything that they did, but putting on my defense lawyer hat, was it racially motivated? Because people from Europe are also immigrants.
I'm not sure if this is completely accurate or not, but I heard that they were also perhaps throwing up the Elon salute, if we can call it that now. Wouldn't that be a hate crime?
Not necessarily, not unless you were doing it in a threatening or harassing fashion, because again, to be a hate crime, there has to be a crime committed. But if you were threatening somebody or intimidating them while doing that salute, then that could potentially rise to the level of being classified as a hate crime.
How much does it matter when we talk about the public sphere? So you're doing something that could be visible to any sort of bystander just walking by versus the private sphere. Obviously, if we're talking about something that involves assault in the private sphere, still assault, possibly a hate crime. But if you are hosting a private party and you say some hateful things, could that constitute a hate crime?
No. So offenses for inciting hate or promoting hate have to occur in places where they are public. They have to be a place that the public has access to or is invited to. And for the purposes of the inciting hate offense, it also requires that you do it in a way that's likely to lead to a breach of the peace.
Interesting. So what I'm hearing is, I really hope this is not advice that I'm giving to hateful people, but if you're a hate group, you can do whatever you'd like in sort of the confines of a private group, so long as it doesn't spill over into the public realm.
Yes. I mean, at the end of the day, one of our charter protected rights is the freedom of association, and that protects your right to hang out with a bunch of Nazis if you want to be a Nazi.
In general, I mean, break it down for someone who is not a lawyer and is just watching this as the, average person. At what point does someone's freedom of expression infringe upon other people's rights?
Well, it's not so much that your freedom of expression infringes on somebody else's rights, but it violates the criminal code, and it violates it at the point that you are advocating for hatred or advocating for violence as a result of hatred towards somebody. So when you're not just expressing opinions that are derogatory or offensive, but you're doing them in a way that is causing other people to act or intending to cause other people to act as a result of it.
But some of those opinions, as you just said, even though they might not be calling for direct violence, they do count as hate crimes.
If it is something that is likely to lead to a breach of the peace, likely to cause something to happen.
This seems very gray and blurry. Am I missing something here?
No, you're not. It's a terribly written law. There have been efforts by the federal government to reform it. Of course, those kind of died when Parliament got prorogued. But
there were recent efforts.
There have been recent efforts to try and sort of reclassify and redefine hate, and also to deal with online hate and online harms that come from that. Okay,
so I guess let me ask you really quickly in about 30 seconds or less. Online hate. Does there need to be a special carve out? Like, are people online getting away with things that maybe they wouldn't if it was offline?
No, it's more difficult to police online, but the criminal code still does define communication of hate as including digital communications.
Wow. Well, Kyla, I think you explained it in a very clear way, but honestly, I'm still very confused about these definitions. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Folks, thank you so much for watching, and thank you, of course, to Emily Boston and cool Kyla Lee for tonight's show. If you were ever disappointed upon meeting your favorite politician in person, please shoot me an email, mo@thisisvancolour.com. I'd love to hear about your experience. Also, delete your social media and don't follow me @VANCOLOUR. Spend that time with your family or a dog instead. Or spend more of your time with me, as we'll be back next week. But until then, be colorful. Peace.